Welcome to part 2 of the Book of Primitus. So, the last video, we covered about 1/3 of part 2 of my lecture series, which is the Book of Primitus, book 2 of the Legendary Scrolls. Now, the second part um, will end with how death enters the world. So, first, let's get started. So, where we left off, we had, before this, we had talked about the fairies and the mermaids and how they were created, and the Vienna, how they were created, and the elves, all their subraces. And so now we have all the races of people on the earth are now there and established with their lands. Now we're going to move on to how death enters the world. So, past the mountains of Volterra, in the land of Anorak, there was built a palace for Gogma, one of the daughters of Odin. And people would visit the sons and daughters of Odin, meaning their direct sons and daughters, and even Odin himself, because there was no death in this age. Now, as men and women multiplied on the earth, they grew impure, and Toniel watched from Amnia. So, as you can see, I have this arrow pointing here. In the map, it's spelt incorrectly because it's been updated since high school to be spelt more naturally. And also Payesha, it's not Payesha, it's Verdal. So up here, Gogma, one of the direct daughters of Odin, built a palace, more like a mansion, but it's technically a palace too. And yeah, a lot of people would go and visit her there because she has a very beautiful estate up there, and they would stay there and do not good things there, as we'll see. So, well, I'll talk about that later. I was about to, but no. Okay. So I tried using AI art to generate her palace. It didn't come out too well, but this was the best out of the batch that I could get. Just ignore the water here. The mountains aren't that high in Anorak. There's more pine trees. This isn't a feature of her palace, necessarily. And it's also not like this style. Like what is this? It's like a mix of I don't know what you call that style. Like German kind of architecture mixed with Greek. Very strange. I'd say but the vibes are there. Yeah. Okay. So, before this quote, what happens is oh, I'm sorry, I just woke up. Before we get into the next little quote from my book there, I need to explain what happens before it. So, if you recall, in the creation story, with the creation of the 7 Espers, only 6 of them are named. There was a 7th Esper, who was the 4th Esper of light. So there were originally 4 Espers of light in Amnia, and then 3 Espers of darkness in the abyss under Hilvan. Now the 4th Esper of light, her name was Ari, spelled Ahri, and she would debate with Virga, the Esper of purity, about the way things work. And she had bad ideologies, and she's kind of like a Lucifer figure for the Espers. So she fell from her place on the Empyrean seat in Amnia. Antonio banished her spirit to wander the earth, um, because she can't go to Heelvan as an Esper of light because she still is made up of that light. Um, so she has to be banished to the earth. Uh, Problem with that is, now being on the earth, her spirit influenced people's hearts, and you'll see that as a motif throughout this book, especially with the Great War when we get to that. That Espers kind of have that power to influence humanity's hearts on a grand scale, not like a specific individual, but kind of like sways the air, so to speak, of what people think and what they feel. This influence, it doesn't control, but influence. So, because of Ari, humanity became impure. So, because she did that, her name was banished from the records of the Legendary Scrolls, the very book that we're reading from. Um, anyway, so she comes here, and that's why she's not mentioned in the book. She's like, everything that has to do with her is like forbidden to speak of by the people in the universe. So the people in the universe who wrote this book, they couldn't write about her. So she comes down here, like there's this little dot here I have, right here, in the Ensu forests, I should say, and there's a mansion over here where a bunch of people lived. That so like during this time in history, a lot of people didn't necessarily live in big towns and cities. Although there are few enough that everyone knows every city that there is, or town. But like all of these towns didn't exist yet. That we'll get to later. It's just Nympha so far. Nympha, Ahana, Ultira. There's not really a capital in Granera yet. And then Gogma's Palace. So a lot of people lived in like communal like buildings, with a lot of nature, like a lot of empty property around them. There's not like clusters of towns yet. Anyway, so there is one of those mansions there like that in this area in the valleys here, and 3 of the people who lived there were Lena, who is an elf, Betha, and Rebecca, with a K, K-A-H, Rebecca. And those 3 were really good friends, but Ari's spirit influenced this area because this is where her spirit came down to at first. And because of that influence in their hearts, they also got that ideology, so to speak. Which I'll talk about more in the future in Book 9 when it's actually a little bit revealed what that is. But not for now. And their hearts are influenced, so they go up to Gogma's Palace, because Gogma's Palace is where this debauchery begins to. It's like L.A. basically. No, this is like the Vegas of Ardon at this point. Not good. Antonio, of course, is watching this happen. Now there's a reason why this becomes how death enters the world. I'll get into that, but also, even personally, when I came up with this backstory in middle school going into high school, of course I grew up in public school, and I got also with some things with family situation, and also with school, and even the media, I just got really sick, honestly. I still am, but especially at that age, I was really sick and tired of being surrounded all the time, everywhere I went, with talks of, it's all sex, it's all this, and I really just didn't understand it, and I hated it so much that I don't think I consciously made the decision, but as I was coming up with the backstory, it just kind of naturally was like, what should be like the sin, the wrong thing that brings death into the world, that makes humanity deserve death. It could have been murder, but that wouldn't make sense because death wouldn't be in the world yet. And I thought about what, and I didn't even really think about it much. I just kind of, as I was writing it and thinking of brainstorming ideas way back then, I just naturally landed on No, it's sexual impurity. That's what would make humanity deserve death. So that's where it came from. In the real world. In this world, it came from Ari the Esper. Um, anyway, so these three friends come up here and they journey here. They make this huge journey all the way up here, just so they can ask Gogma if Auden and Adia, if Auden specifically, is still in Emek, because the way word spread throughout here, like here, not a lot of people write letters yet to each other. So how does word spread? It spreads through the cities that are built like that. And so that gives context for what I'm about to read. Now we can read it. So they come up. Oh, it's not there. Okay. I do need to explain more. So they go to Gogma's palace. They ask her, "Oh, where's Auden? Is he still in Emek?" She's like, "Yeah, she's still. I mean, he and his wife are still there because Gogma is one of their direct daughters, so she would know." And then after asking her, she gives them the directions all the way down to Emek. They journey down to Emek, and they find the birthplace of man, which is where Auden and Adia still live. And then this is what happens when they reach Auden and Emek. Okay. And they spoke with him to deceive him, that he would break his covenant with Adia. Auden at first refused, then he gave in. Again, Ari's spirit influencing, but it's a secret for now in the book. And lost his integrity. So Auden at first refused, then he gave in and lost his integrity. We all know what this means. If not, that's good. Okay. And Adia's heart was torn, and she said unto her husband, "What is this you have done? I was made beside you, and we were given dominion over the earth. But now you have fallen, and you have brought shame upon yourself and I." Auden was deeply ashamed, and sent the women away to be exiles in the other lands. He also wore black robes and shaved his head, for his remorse toward his wife was great. So, we need to keep note of this. This is the moment when Toniel decides, okay, that's it. We're judging the earth. Because it is when Auden, the first man, when he becomes impure, that's when Toniel decides to judge the earth. Again, really bad image. I tried getting him to be kneeling to his wife Adia, but it just wouldn't work. It's nicer looking than this. It's made out of stone. These buildings should be. But you get the picture. Also, Auden has a little bit more like olive tone skin. Doesn't matter. So that happens. Now Toniel responds. Toniel looked down on the earth, mourning, and said, "The earth has become impure, and now we must judge it. For all impurity must be wiped out from Empyria. Those who have made themselves unclean must be punished." Therefore, Toniel said to Kaifin, "Release Tenebris, the Esper of darkness, and let him touch the earth. For the earth is unclean, and those on it are impure." So Kaifin gave the order, and Tenebris was released from the abyss, and began heading toward Ovissa as a cloud of darkness. So, of course, Kaifin is the Esper of Oblivion, and he is the one who has the authority over the three Espers of darkness, who reside in the abyss under Hilvan. Tenebris is the Esper of darkness and death, okay? Chaos is the Esper of darkness and distortion, or just twisting things, distortion. Then Ravenira is the original Esper of darkness and impurity, to kind of foil Virga. However, Ari took that place as well. Anyway, so Tenebris is actually used as the means of judgment on humanity. Now, sorry, I'm going to be yawning a lot. because I'm so tired. I just woke up. Let me get some water before I continue. And clear my throat. I hope that wasn't too loud. Sorry. So, let's see, where was I? So there's a reason why this sin, so to speak, in this universe, it's not called sin. It's just called evil, doing wrong. But it's more specifically the darkness, which we get into in book 3. But book 3 will explain the workings of everything and the law and all that kind of stuff. But there's a reason why this sexual impurity is so evil in the eyes of Toniel. And really all the precursors, except Kyphon. He doesn't really care. He's aloof. He's in nowhere doing his own thing. So Arcane, the creator, whom Toniel was made from, the only sentient being in the universe who shares the same essence as the creator. We'll get into book 3, of course. Arcane and Eula, it's like god and goddess deity, so they represent romantic love. And Auden and Adia were created to be an image of that in their marriage. Sexual impurity completely what's the word? Completely tarnishes? Trying to think of the right word. Completely desecrates. Yeah, disgraces and spits on that image. And it's impure, and that's why it's impure. So that's why this was serious enough to Toniel that he had to bring judgment on the earth. So, and he has to have Kyphon be the one to release Tenebris, because Kyphon's the one with the authority over the Espers of Darkness. Alright. Now, there was a man who had kept his purity, and had not defiled his body, whose name was Aegir. Toniel appeared before Aegir in the night, and said unto him, I have found you alone on this earth to be pure. Behold now, I bring Tenebris to devour the earth, and the whole earth will be covered in the darkness. This is the first time we are seeing mention of the darkness. Yes, it is supposed to be a capital T. We'll get into this more later, continuing. But you I will save, and all those who turn from their filth and purify themselves. They will be saved also. How do they purify themselves? I'll get into it. Therefore, go into the lands and tell this word to all who will hear, for the darkness approaches. Aegir did as Toniel said, and he set out to warn all people on earth of the coming destruction. So, if you're getting like Noah and the flood vibes, that's kind of intentional. Aegir is like the Noah figure in this universe. So, Aegir goes to Gogma's chamber, and when he enters his chamber, Gogma said, Greetings, young man. Have you come to lay with me, or do you seek an answer? So, people are getting so depraved at this point that it's kind of common speech. Just like how it is in public school, and even just in daily life and out in the world. This kind of talk becomes so common. But it's at least supposed to be shown right here in how she speaks too. Aegir said, I have come to this wicked place, Gogma's palace, to warn you, and to warn all those who lie in the palace. Tenebris is coming to the earth, and he will engulf it in the darkness. And all who do not purify themselves will not be saved, and they will perish in the shadows. And Gogma said, Perish? None have perished. Sensing her unbelief, Aegir went out of her presence and left the palace to warn the other lands. So Gogma's like, what? Perish? What? Like when something stops working or something stops being? Like there's no way. That can't happen to people. What? What's she talking about? And she just doesn't believe what he's saying. So it is necessary for people to believe his message, for people to purify themselves. Now then goes from. Let me go back to the map. So he goes to Gogma's palace. Then he goes down to Ultira. Okay. After Aegur had said this, after he shares the message with Zerafox and warns his household, the royal family, Zerafox's countenance fell, and he turned to Sephernia, his wife, the queen, saying, "Should we believe this man? Who has ever heard of such a thing, that a person would die?" Like, what? A person dying? What even is death? How can he say that all who live on the earth could die? Then Zerafox turned to Aegur and said, "Tell us, how do you say that we can make ourselves clean, so that we may escape the storm that is coming? We have not done anything wrong. Tell us what the meaning of this salvation is." Okay. Aegur has some more responses to them, but we're going to move on. This isn't supposed to be like a commentary on the book. It's just me talking about what happens throughout the book. I need to remind myself of that too, because I can get carried away. Now a great number of people had heard his message, and many of them changed their ways. All who were pure were given a mark on their skin, which is the mark of purity. All those with the mark of purity would be saved from the darkness. So, eventually the time comes. Angelus ordered his angels, and they flew above the earth, and took up the pure ones in flashes of light. And they were taken to Aresta, and were scattered across their rift plains. Now we know how people reach the rift plains. Those who remained on earth witnessed this, and said to themselves, "It is just the lightning." And this takes place at nighttime, by the way, like midnight. Not said in the text, but that's when it happened. So, I did try to get a good image of this to generate, but it just didn't pan out. So this image generated one big lightning bolt, and it's not, you don't see anyone being taken up in it. What would be more what is this? Creepy. What would be more accurate is if there's more sparse towns, or not towns, but sparse homes and stuff, and some people walking about, maybe carrying wheat and stuff in robes and all that, and then like a golden lightning bolt like this, golden lightning bolt here for like individual people taking them up, and that's what the imagery should look like. So this is called the Rapture, but the Rapture in my universe. I'm gonna take some water. Did I just say take some water? Drink some water. Sheesh. Again, I need to go back to speech therapy, but maybe it's too late for that. I just have to practice and get good, which is also part of the reason why I'm doing this series, to just practice speaking like a normal person. You know, I hear my voice in my recordings. My voice is just so... I don't enunciate. I slur a lot. I mumble. But, like, I don't hear that when I'm talking. And it doesn't feel like I'm doing that when I talk. And then I listen to it and I'm like, holy crap, I do that. It sucks. So I need to be more self-aware of how my voice sounds. It's so weird, like when I try to speak with enunciating and doing it normally, like there's tension and like a pain in the back of my tongue. Like it feels like it's straining itself. It's so bizarre. Anyway, so I drew this to give an idea of what the Rapture is like here. This is supposed to be the continent, and that's Emek. I just did it really quick because I was speeding trying to make this presentation. There's the moon, stars, angels should be stars here. Stars, angels descending to Earth, taking them up like lightning, and then taking them out of Ovissa, out of the heavens and the earth, to Aresta, the big golden ring of light that's above and that's a ring around Ovissa, so outside of Ovissa. So past the heavens, above the waters above the heavens, and then into the rift planes that are in the in pocket dimensions in the portals of light in Aresta. That's where they're taking them. All right. And that is how people get to the rift planes before the technology existed to travel through space. So, now the moment comes. Tenebris reached Ovissa, and the darkness descended upon the earth. The earth was shrouded in black clouds, and Tenebris snuffed out the lives of all its inhabitants, except Akenna, who was in a deep slumber. Therefore, this tragic event is called the Shadowfall, or the Flood of Darkness, for the whole earth was covered. Akenna is the son of King Zerafox of Volterra, so he was the first prince of Volterra. And since Zerafox and Sephernia were not purified and they died in the Shadowfall, they had Akenna. Akenna, since he was a newborn, he couldn't defile his body, so Toniel gave him a special mark on his skin that would keep him alive through the Shadowfall. So he's the only human being on the earth who didn't die in the Shadowfall, aside from those who were taken up by the angels to the Rift Planes, to the other worlds. So that's why that's there. Okay. Okay. Here's a pretty good image of what I had to change the hue of the original image because it was too purple. It still has purple in it. The Shadowfall is just black. It should just be black. This is the best I could do. And yeah, Tenebris. This is like Tenebris here. Him in his cloud of darkness covers the whole earth, and all people on the earth except Akenna perish. Their bodies are not left. They completely. They're just dead. They're gone. Now, there are enormous implications and effects of the fact that Tenebris touched the creation. The worlds where humanity lives. So Ovissa and Aresta. After the Shadowfall was over, Tenebris left Ovissa and returned to the depths of the abyss, which is under Hilvan. Sorry. So tired. As the dark clouds disappeared, the sun's light shone through them, and the air of the earth was cleared of the shadows. So Tenebris basically descended on the earth at midnight, and then as the sun began to rise the next morning, Tenebris returns, and the clouds dissipate. Now, we're going to go back to the timeline from the beginning. Now we have covered from the creation of the universe, and we have just reached the Shadowfall here. So this happened in the year 2580 AC. So we covered 2,580 years. Doesn't feel like it because, it's a big, broad, sweeping historical narrative, not meant to be. It's not like a novel. It's not like a normal story. It's like if you go to a school or a college or university, and you find, or a library in the city, and you find a big book, a big history book that explains the history of all humanity, and our Earth in real life. It's like that. It's not going to go into every detail. It's just very broad, sweeping. Yeah. So, part 3 of this of the lecture series number 2 that we're doing on the Book of Primitus. Part 3 will end here, okay? And then book 3 will be here. So, but for now, death has now entered the world. And because death is in the world, obviously, people will age and they don't live forever anymore. Alright? Now, this is something that happens simultaneously with the rapture. And this is something that, I'm just going to read. Now there were many people in Aresta, and the rift planes began to grow in population. Akenna was the only man left on the earth, and he slept until he was 27 years old. Antoniel created a new earth, using the Gaia from creation, and by the authority of Arcane himself. So the new Earth was made, and now the old Earth is called Ardon. So from now on, Ardon is what we call the Earth that we've known this whole time. And now Earth is this new Earth, which is, yes, it's called Gaian, and it is our Earth in the real universe. Why? Well, no, that's spoiler territory. Yeah, for the movies. Anyway, it is called Gaian in this universe, and it's a little Easter egg. So, here is the way it worked when Toniel made Gaian. Here's Ardon, which is the Earth we've been following everything on the whole time. The Sun. This is their orbit. I drew this really quick, and I cannot draw a good circle or an ellipsis. But just imagine this represents something. It's not the exact thing. I drew this line here to show how Gaian and Ardon are perfectly parallel to each other in their orbit, so that they can share the same orbit, the same distance to the sun, and the same speed in the same day-night cycle. However, since they go the same speed, they never will collide with each other. So kind of like this going here, going here, going here, like that. So Gaian is this Earth. It's our Earth. Now, not our Earth with the same history, not our Earth, the same people necessarily. However, I put this. This is a little Easter egg to the real world, just for fun. And honestly, I did do this just to make people think, but there's nothing really. There's no deeper meaning to this. It's just there is a purpose for why it exists in this universe. We'll get to that in the movies, but so we got a long time to go until then. For now, I'll read this and then just forget about it after this, if possible. Again, there was a day when Adam was searching through the land. So Adam is one of the people who was taken in the rapture, and he was taken to a rift plane called Enox, named after Enox, one of the sons and daughters of Canis from the last video, who they were the ones who first discovered the rift planes, remember? So Enox, the one he landed on, the one he appeared on through the rift gate, was the one that Adam was taken to with other people and his wife. And that is why that rift plane is called Enox, because each of the rift planes are named after the people who discovered them. Anyway. So, there was a day when Adam was searching through the land with his party, and this time found an abandoned rift gate, which was covered in vines and moss. And when they read the inscriptions on the architecture, Adam said unto his followers, "Behold, we have found a relic from our ancestors. Surely this was the same gate that was mentioned in those stories of old, where the sons of Canis discovered a new world." Then Adam and his followers examined the structure, which was shaped like a ring, being 15 feet wide and 26 feet high, and placed their rift crystals inside the engravings which were around the ring. When they had done this, the ring began to move, and a portal of light appeared within the gate. Then Adam and his followers, along with his wife, whose name is Ivana, by the way. No, that's someone else. Eva. E-V-A-H. Eva. And yes, that's also an Easter egg to Eve. Adam and Eve. They entered the gate, and they arrived on the new Earth. They're not our real Adam and Eve, of course. But Adam and Eva in this universe, they're like an Easter egg. You know, they're like a cameo. I don't know. For Toniel used the rift portal, as an opening to bring them to the new Earth, since no airship had yet been invented. So, Adam and Eva and their people arrive here, around here, like the Middle East, you know, Israel, that general area. And I have not developed any history for this planet. Aside from the fact that in quote unquote modern years, during the movies, by that time, the Earth has the same continent names and the same countries and stuff. but not the same people, not the same leaders, potentially. But I purposely have never gone into it in much detail. Sort of a mystery world. I need to clear my throat so bad. Okay, so after many years, the new Earth, Gaian, was filled. It's not called Gaian, by the way, during the time when this was written. It's only given that name Gaian a little bit later in history, when people started to realize, oh, people still call Ardon Earth, and then there's this new Earth. But also because most of the trillions of people later in history who live in all the worlds, nobody thinks about this Earth, a Gaian. And also in modern times, the people who live on this Earth know nothing about the other worlds. They don't even know about Ardon because it's always on the opposite side of the sun from them, so they can't observe it. Moving on. So after many years, the Earth was filled with many people, and Ardon also regained its population because people started coming back through rift gates that they would build. They missed their home, their towns, their cities, and stuff that they would build. Now people no longer lived forever, for death had entered the world through the darkness because of the impurity of man. So now people aren't immortal anymore. It's the ultimate tragedy. Now with death existing in the universe, people no longer live forever, of course. Obviously. Duh. Did I need to put that there? However, unlike the real world, where the max lifespan is like max 120, usually, 60, 70, 80, actually. Maybe 90s. In Empyria, in my universe, the max lifespan is 300 years. For humans, it is 300, so that's like us, people who aren't a different race. 300 it is for humans. For elves, it's 500 years. For Vienna, it's 700. And for the fairies, it's 900. The mermaids' lifespans are unknown because they disappeared into their own world under the seas on Ardon. Now, they were actually excluded from the events of the Shadowfall because they're in the ocean. And they never grew impure because they're mermaids. They don't reproduce the same. And they weren't influenced by Ari's spirit. So they're very much in their own little world. But they do still die now. Because the Shadowfall still affected the nature of reality. It brought death into the world. So, but they're not really talking about much ever since their creation. They kind of just disappeared into the ocean. So the writers of the book, the Legendary Scrolls, they wrote what they know about, So, that is it for part 2. A fairly short video, so I might just record this right after this one for part 3 to finish the book of Primitus. But, one last thing to mention. This is very important to know for the rest of everything in this universe, is that while people do now age and they die of old age, nobody ages. Like the idea of your skin getting wrinkly and you getting gray hair and all that kind of stuff. People don't really age physically with their skin. So, like how do you look at when you're age 30? When people reach age 30 in my universe of any of the races, including humans, they look like they do at 30. It's like the body grows until it's 30, and then it stops growing. And in a sense, it stops aging, like appearance-wise, your body stops aging. So the Shadowfall brought death into the world in the sense that it made, in a supernatural sense, it made people's physical life and their bodies have a max limit of 300 for humans, and then the others for the other races. But it doesn't necessarily bring like aging into the cells of the body, where you see people like getting older and stuff. People just, you reach the age of 30, you look that same way, and then if you do live long enough to get to 300, you look like a 30-year-old until you're 300, and then you die. Now, the only thing is, around the age of 150-ish, that's when people start to get like gray hairs a little bit. So you can imagine some people with like gray hair, but not everybody gets the same amount of gray hairs past 150. And also, they would have gray hair if they were older, but they wouldn't have any other physical appearances of age based on how we perceive aging in our world, how it works in our world. So that is also really important to realize, because in the movies there are characters who are supposed to be really old, and you would never know that just by looking at them. So that's how that works, okay? Also, side note, there's no such thing as quote-unquote going to the bathroom in my universe. So people eat food and drink water, drink drinks. If you eat and drink, your body just the body just absorbs it. The human body has kind of a different biological framework, I guess. Is that how I say it? I don't know. Just because as a kid, when I made up my world, I didn't like going to the bathroom all the time. I just hated it. So in my universe, people don't go to the bathroom. So that goes into the way buildings are built too. And there's no such thing as like a restroom. There are bathrooms in the literal sense. There are rooms with baths. But even baths and showers aren't super needed, because like the human bodies don't really give off bad odors most of the time. It's not natural. So that's how the universe works, okay? So now we're almost done with book 2, the Book of Primitus. Now I've basically gone through the Primitus age. There's only a little bit left. Let me cover my mic so I can clear my throat. Sorry if that was super loud. I don't know how that will sound in the video. Hopefully not too bad. Anyway. What was I saying? What was I speaking about? So now we've reached death, now death is in the world. I've explained the way things work in the world to a good extent. And now the stage of history is set for the rest of what will happen. Alright. Now, part 3 will continue the rest of Book of Primitus. Even after death enters the world, there's still a little bit left of the Primitus age, technically. Even though death is now in the world. And the Primitus age represents the time of humanity in the beginning where there was no death. But I'm going to get into this in the next video, so see you then.